streaming. There, we're going to begin. And let's do attendance. My schedule. Greetings. Quick. You should be here already. There's no excuse at the end of a long break like that. Timmy. Ben. Lily. No Lily. Archie. Zoe. No Zoe. Lisa. No Lisa. Felix. Zane. Casey. No Casey. Casey?
Yeah.
Annabelle.
Yep.
Clara. No Clara. William K. Alejandra. Kate. Violet. Naomi. Brandon. Hugo. Not here. Parker. And Had. Kieran. Hugo. Coming in late.
Yeah, it was math tutorial.
No. No excuse to be late.
Yeah, there's no
No. And Had. There you go. Kieran Van Fleet. Kate. Anderson. And Thomas. And with all the people that just walked in, is Lily here? Late. Zoe? Late. Lisa? Late. Clara didn't show up though, did she? Nope. Oh, right. She's at an event, but she has to go grab her books. Okay, notebooks out. We're going to listen to a little bit of the podcast at the end. We're going to start off continuing on with our notes and then take a break from that because there is a lot of notes about all the things that ethics is not. And we went off with beliefs or belief systems. I'm going to go into a little bit why. Because a belief or a belief system provides a lot of people with ethics or morals. And I think I ended off the last time we were doing this, is that we want to use the type of ethics that you can use with everybody. If I mandated here that everybody has to wear a colander on their head because I am part of the flying spaghetti monster cult, then that would probably be wrong. And make sure I'm recording. I am. Now, when we talk about beliefs or belief systems, we're talking about something that usually mandates your moral beliefs if you're part of the system. If you're Catholic, you have a certain mandated beliefs. If you are Muslim, you have certain mandated beliefs. If you are part of the flying spaghetti monster cult, you have a set of mandated beliefs involving pasta. And when we talk about ethics, we want to use a type of ethics that is true for everyone. So we've been talking about subjective and objective. We want to be able to apply something to everyone. You can't apply Hindu ethics to anybody who doesn't already subscribe to Hindu ethics. If you are Christian or Buddhist or one of the many others, you will have mandated beliefs as part of that particular one. They may differ by church. I grew up in a household that, although it was Christian ethics, it was also a subsect of Christian ethics. And so they had different beliefs than other Christians, to the point that they were kicked out of Germany for having those beliefs. They were too Christian for the other Christians there, and so they fled to Russia, which turned out to be a mistake because that was like a generation before the Russian Revolution, and then they fled to Canada and the U.S. and all over the world, depending on where they ended up. And so they'll have mandated systems. You can't have much choice over those systems. I suppose if you're Catholic, you could become the Pope and change them. Or you can go out and invent your own. I hear that's lucrative. Why is the mouse not coming up? Come on. There we go. And if you're mandated to be a part of it, and you can't question it, and you can't argue it in court, and you can't defend it, and if you're a doctor, where are your notes? Where's it? In class. Notes up. Ready to go. And then that's a matter of training. Now, that's not necessarily true. I'm sure we can find, there's enough religions in the world we could probably find one. There's probably enough Christian sects in the world that we could probably find one that has more of a basis in argument. I know the Jesuits are fairly famous for that. But if we want it to be public policy, because we're going to look at biomedical ethics in particular, we want to apply it to people who aren't a part of that particular religion. We're going to want something that has a rational defense outside of just saying it's part of a particular religion. Because we get into difficulty if we're providing something as a public service. If you're a doctor and you live in Mill Bay and you don't believe in birth control, and your patient asks you to prescribe your birth control, do you have to prescribe it?
But if you don't believe it, doesn't mean they don't.
Doesn't mean they don't, and you're providing a service. Now, around here though, you could choose not to prescribe it because you could just refer them to another doctor. But if you live in Tuktoyaktuk, you are probably the only doctor. And at that point, you're everybody's last line of defense. And so you have less choice because you're providing a service. And that makes sense when you're a doctor. There's been, in the US, they've had more fights over this in like the cake wars. You're a baker and you don't want to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple. Are you allowed to refuse them service because of their beliefs or your beliefs? And they argue back and forth. In most places that this is fought, there's lots of people who bake. And so there could be more of an interplay between different beliefs. But if you're providing an essential service, certainly, and you're providing medicine, why is this? There we go. My mouse isn't showing up. And we need a conflict resolution system. Do you just poll everybody and ask them what they want, which is back to just using people's opinion? Do you pick one with someone in charge, like Catholicism, and then the Pope would just ask God? Must be nice to be the Pope. You just get up and you're like, what should I have for breakfast? And then they tell you, and you'd have that. It would be the perfect thing. Because it would be God. They would know.
So if the Pope said that God told him something, no matter how crazy it is, then wouldn't that just be basically how it is, and then you all have to follow that?
Yeah, if you're Catholic.
If you're Catholic, yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of find it weird that there's one person that can act, one official person that can speak for God, because it's like, you can't really speak to God.
Well, he can.
Can he though?
Oh, well, yeah, that's, again, mandated part of the belief system. If you're Catholic.
I mean, I am Catholic,
Oh.
but I still kind of find it hard to believe.
Ah. You're one of those cafeteria Catholics. You want to pick and choose from your beliefs.
Well, no, I have my own beliefs about my religion, but it's just like the whole thing about that he can actually officially speak
Yeah.
for God. I
Yeah.
feel like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I feel like there's a nail and a list of demands about to be nailed to a church door somewhere. Yep.
I thought the Pope just read the text.
Oh, wait, the Pope does, but the Pope also gets divine revelation. Yeah, he's the conduit. In an unbroken line, apparently, from St. Peter. So that is the basis for the Catholic Church. Catholic, if the root word in English means correct, and so it's supposed to be the one correct one. Yes?
Was
money and popularity. I kid. What is the difference between a cult and a religion? Yes?
Like cults are willing to take more drastic measures.
We often have that feeling there, yeah. A cult is like, they're going to do things that are a little weird, yeah?
Cult has like a leader. Like,
Cult? Well,
I mean, like not in a Jesus way or something. I mean, like someone invented it, and it's about like he is like the middle of the whole cult.
so like the Pope.
I think like instead of a god, it's like a person.
I'll get ahead, yeah. But name one that was invented by someone that wasn't divinely inspired. Like one that wasn't, like name a version of what you're talking about.
Like,
Be aware, I don't want you to insult any particular religions, but if you have like, I think it's this, and
like
someone else,
Scientology.
pardon?
Scientology.
Yeah. So the part is, if anybody else in here believes in Scientology, that's fine. But if we want to use an example, I believe people who are in Scientology follow L. Ron Hubbard, and I believe he says he was divinely inspired from communicating with the cosmos. Yeah. So it wasn't invented by someone. He
Like,
did.
he makes profit out of like the cult. He gets like the thing like the Pope. He's very rich, but he's like not making like.
I don't know if you know just how much
No, yeah, I know.
the Pope is worth and all the things that they have. There's a lot of money
They
there.
have a lot of
They have a lot of
but
money,
it's not
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not about like okay, give me money. It's more about like
May I introduce you to evangelicalism, in which, if I open that door, there's an entire version of Christianity involved with money and profit, and to convince people how to make money. It's a little, but I think to take it in the best way possible, we get suspicious when it's all about money. So control, money, yep.
I mean, cult is sort of like a subjective thing, isn't it? Like some people may define a cult as, different as someone else's.
They might, yeah. Well, anytime you're getting into the English language, you could probably come up with a subjective definition and say it's up to people's opinion. But you could also say, this is what I think is a cult, and come up with a definition. And for you, it's objective, and if other people agree with you, it's subjective. So we've got money, we've got control, although we haven't said what amounts. And then a lot of things are also like checklists. If you have like one person in charge, we think that's kind of culty, but if that's the only thing you have, maybe it doesn't tick off all the other boxes. Yep.
Why do people join cults?
Oh. It's a, I would say if you're going to get involved with a cult, joining as a follower, a lot more fun. But if you want to make more money, be the leader.
What do you like do?
Whatever the cult
How
does.
do they make money? That's weird.
So you may join, and anybody here join a cult? Give us one place. No.
is
Yeah.
it interesting
Wait,
with the church?
I haven't joined one, but it's like, would you say almost in some cases cults don't care about money as much as religion in a sense of like that one cult where these people just like on this one day killed themselves like in a farm and just slit their throats because they thought they would like go up to not having the like this
There,
higher plane of existence, but really they just
there's been a number of doomsday cults in which they predict the end of the world is going to happen and get very upset when it doesn't.
would you say like a cult is just like a more strict like niche religion or
Niche religion, like bespoke.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because like cults are usually smaller in scale.
I like that because it implies kind of that they also might be more classy, like they're more
Like a little
detailed.
club.
It's a more exclusive club. You'll believe harder. I don't think I've heard from you.
Would a cult be like a subjective thing?
Would it be?
I don't know, would it be? Well, I know you just said that, but like, if you went somewhere that was not at all classified as a cult, but it ticked off all the boxes of being a cult,
Yeah.
would you be in a cult?
Well, it depends if you believe the definition of a cult is objective or not. I mean, we could go, maybe we're all in a cult, because if you check off Brentwood,
Very cult.
we're very, very close to cults. But I think we escape under some clauses. It could be. I'm not going to say it's objective or it's subjective. I don't know. But there are places that do active work to define what a cult is, because some cults have turned out have abused people. So we worry about organizations that don't allow people to escape, and those are the type we worry about. If your cult is like, we want to feed the poor, sure, nobody's going to bother you. There and there.
Just wanted to say, like, maybe it's just like cult and new religion. Like,
Yeah, it could be like a
religion, 100 years, they're like
little baby religion. Yeah.
Two questions. One, what isn't a cult and religion the same thing? Like, what even really is the difference?
Well, I know
Isn't a cult just like a lower scale religion?
a lower scale religion.
And like more like severe beliefs, I guess.
More severe beliefs.
Yeah, like more drastic measures they take in their faith.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, cause wasn't there the one cult where they all drank the poison Kool-Aid and they all died? It's like the one guy was gonna get caught.
Yeah. So I mean I searched this at random, so I'm not going to say this is it. But you know, if you want to know anything, oh hold it, this is not the one I meant to. That's on the Guardian. Good God. So I clicked on the long one. That's in the letters section. Come on. Come on. There was a Wikipedia article. Oh, now I'm deep into Reddit, so no, not going to do that. So, if you, there used to be a rescue organization that if you were worried about someone being involved in the cult. So here's where a lot of people make this like more severe. So if they tell you not to talk to your friends or family, not to tell anybody that you're in the cult, and to give them all of your money, and then you subsume all of your relations in the cult to them, then that seems, whatever it is, it seems to be a bad relationship. We tend to reserve cult, in English it tends to mean like a bad type of religion, usually kind of small. Now, all your points about, is it not just a baby religion? Absolutely could be. Lots of religions started out small. I love the story, and this was told to me by a friend of mine growing up. He was Mormon, and they have this tale in which the person who started Mormonism, he looked, I believe, into a sack and then saw gold plates that wrote out what happened. And then he would write them out and say, this is what I saw. And I believe it was his wife or his friend who didn't believe what was going on, so stole the paper and said, well, if it really is divine, then you can recreate everything you wrote, because I'll just show it to you again. And so he looked at it again and came up with a very similar but completely different, so not the same wording at all, but different stuff, and said, that is there to prove that I can see things, but they were upset about this, and they're not going to show me exactly the same thing. And that is given as evidence as why it's true. And they acknowledge how silly that sounds, and that's part of the religion. It's divine revelation. And they're the nicest people. So every religion may have started out in a way that we maybe it's kind of culty. But now they're large, they have members, they go to regular jobs, and there's nothing secret about it. If a cult, and this is for you, you're at university and someone really nice says, we're living on this compound. We'd like you to come and join us. You just have to give us access to your bank account. Now, it's not going to be nearly that obvious. It's going to be, come live with us. We have a room for very low rent or free. All you have to do is work in our garden. And then everybody's working in the garden. And then really, they'll just take care of you. You don't have to worry about school anymore. They'll be like, you can just live here, work in the garden, we've got other tasks to do, and it's just like a little community or village. And someone asked, why do people join cults? It's a community. And if you're looking for community, it's a really fast way to become a part of one. Brentwood takes you in, we tell you that your house is part of your family, you have to get to know everybody, really cooperate together, and we compete and have like disagreements with other houses, and it's really a little culty. But it's also not a secret. We're not trying to keep it a secret from everybody else, and we're not telling you you can't contact your family except before Thanksgiving. That sort of thing. And part of the problem is that last sentence. How do you know what God or the goddess or goddesses or gods actually want? There's divine revelation. Some part of the deity told someone, and we have to accept it. If we're going to accept something like that, we can't mandate it as part of for everybody. Not everybody is going to believe that. That's a personal choice. My mouse keeps disappearing. There's my pen. And then, that leaves the Euthyphro dilemma. Euthyphro dilemma. This is a dilemma that was it's old. Predates Christianity and the major world religions today. They were talking about this in Roman times, Roman gods. And the dilemma is, let's assume that it isn't about knowing what God wants, or the goddess, or the goddesses, or the gods, or all of them as a group, because they're a weird family like Zeus was. Let's assume that you can pray and know exactly what God wants. What's your next problem with determining ethics? I'm the God, I'm pretending, you pray to me and I say, you should go out and feed the poor. Is that good? Yeah, sounds good.
Well, it's legal.
Then you pray to me and I'm like, you should go out and murder all left-handed people. Is that good?
Not really.
But I said it.
So it's about, is God ethical?
Is God ethical? Can you know? Yes.
No, wait, sorry. Never mind.
Mm-hmm. If you heard a voice from on high, a bush appeared on fire in front of you and a voice spoke to you and it said, not kill, maybe that's a little too much. But you don't have to be nice to left-handed people anymore. They are actually a little sinister. You know where the word sinister comes from?
The devils?
The word sinister comes from the Latin root meaning left and left-handed people. They've always been suspicious. How many of you are left-handed in this room?
Does forcefully being turned left-handed count?
You were forcefully turned left-handed?
Yeah, I was really bad at my right hand, so I went to therapy.
And they made you write with your left?
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, well, I'm still writing with my left hand.
Oh, okay.
So how would you
Oh, hold it.
Yeah.
So you were bad at right-handed. Were you better at left?
Yeah, well, I still write with my left.
So are you actually left-handed?
Well, I do everything else with my right hand.
Oh, you might be ambidextrous. You good or bad at both, depending on how you want to interpret it. Yeah. Growing up, your great-grandparents, my grandparents, and parents, if you were in school and you wrote with your left hand, in some cases they would tie your left hand down so you wouldn't be able to write with it. My dad remembers getting the cane and the ruler for trying to write with his left hand. So he writes incredibly badly with his right. He bats and plays hockey with his left hand because he's left-handed. But he does a ton of stuff with his right because in school he was forced to, because it was assumed if you wrote with your left hand you were like bad in some particular way. What is so the Euthyphro dilemma is kind of that. If God says something, is it automatically good? Euthyphro. Well, we'll write it down in a second. You don't even write any more than that. In fact, you could write down this question. We're going to watch a little video on it. Because the two questions in the Euthyphro dilemma is, are right actions right because she commands them? So is everything that God says good? Or does she command them because they are right? I'm deliberately using she because in many religions the pronouns are male gendered, so I'm deliberately trying to opposite that. Put your laptop away. Away in your bag. Screen shouldn't flash. Your screens are flashing. You're not writing. So bag down. Yeah, put your bag on the floor so I can see your screen more easily when I'm walking around.
When it comes to murders, how can that?
What do you mean? Okay. There's a famous study that was done in which they presented people with a particular problem, in which soldiers went in and they took some people and they separated them by different nationalities, and then they separated the men, women, and children, and then they killed the whole group. And then they asked them, "How would you justify this?" And most people said, "Wouldn't justify it. In fact, it's a form of genocide." Da 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 da. And then they gave them the exact same story, except this was derived from a religious text and put in all the correct nationalities from the religious text. Far more people were allowed to then were going to say, "Oh, that's actually entirely correct," because she commended that.
Well, it depends.
If God says it, therefore it's good.
But what if you're like on the outside looking in on that?
That's where we get to here. Yeah, if you're on the outside, then maybe you don't accept it. But let's just assume you know. What is the problem if you then, okay, it's not right if God commands it, just because. We have to kind of like look at it. What's the problem with doing that, especially if you're religious?
You're going
Yeah.
You're no longer following your God.
Yeah.
You're going against.
You're not following your God. In fact, what are you assuming about your God?
You're wrong.
They could be wrong. That there is a source of goodness outside of them that they have to follow. Most definitions of God, or goddesses, or gods, whichever one you happen to believe in, assume that they are the source of goodness. There can't be anything outside of them. And if you can determine it outside, that also seems wrong. So that's why it's known as a dilemma. It's a famous philosophical dilemma. We've got it as the Euthyphro dilemma. So there's how you spell it. Is what is morally good commanded by God, goddesses, because it is morally good, or is it morally good because it's commanded by the goddesses? I'll pull up Hank Green. And Hank Green has a whole, if you believe that everything that God commands is automatically good, you believe in something called divine command theory. And he's got a nice little summary. Oh.
What's the theory?
Divine, it'll show it again. Divine command theory, and I just realized, obviously, so we don't get copyright. When can you use divine command theory? Very slow hand going up.
What's the question? When can't you?
When can you? For example, according to the divine command theory, we can't know for certain what God commands, but even if we did, it is either circular. So one of the things we have in Canada is we have freedom of and from religion as part of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We've actually made it illegal to impose. Because we're an independent school and not a private school, I cannot force you to believe in a particular religion. So I can't say before every test, you must pray, and you must pray in this manner. That would be wrong of me. But when can you use divine prayer? Yeah.
I guess like if you make your own like religion and you are it's God, I guess like telling you to do stuff that is divine, you know.
A little broader than that, but I do like the idea of you creating your own religion and making yourself at the center of it. That would be great. When can you pray before a math test? Yes? No, yeah, you can at a religious school. But what if you wanted to, if you're at a religious school, there might be a different religion. Pardon? Are you allowed to pray before a math test?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, if you're religious and you're praying, is that wrong for you to do? No. So when can you use divine command? For yourself. It applies to you. You're allowed to do anything for yourself. The only reason we would stop you is if you were going to harm yourself. But divine command is perfectly valid. The whole point is that it's protected under Canadian law as well. You're allowed to believe in whatever religion you want. You just can't impose it on other people. We want to look at ethics that you can impose on other people. So the Euthyphro dilemma is one of the dilemmas that cause society to take a step back and say, okay, if it's only good because it's commanded by God, which just means everything that God says is what God says, it's circular, this doesn't really help us. But if we can at least agree that even people who are religious will say God or goddesses are also following some sort of prescript of what's good, and we can judge it outside of that, then everybody, regardless of religion, will be able to tell right from wrong. We'll be able to examine it independently as well. And we can use that as our basis for laws. That sounds really nice and sounds like we'd be able to go forward in peace and harmony. There's about a whole bunch of objective ethical theories out there that all agree. So it's not going to be all peace and harmony after this. But at least we can agree that we can come up with some sort of system. So we tend to fall down to one. But if you are a strong divine command theorist, you are absolutely allowed to apply it to yourself. And of course, as long as there is math in class, there will always be prayers in tests in schools. It's just that your teacher can't force you. Yeah.
But what if there are no universal morally rules? What if a religion says don't kill anyone?
Yeah.
Their God says don't kill anyone.
Yeah.
And another religion said
Just
kill
kill
everyone.
Yeah. Is following a religion an objective or subjective belief?
Subjective.
Is it? If you ask me, let's say I go back, I'm going to use myself as an example. So I grew up Mennonite, which is a form of Protestant religion. And you ask me, and I go and I consult my book, read it, Bible, 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And I'm like, no. Did I rely on just my opinion? No. What did I rely on? The Bible, and perhaps the teachings of Menno Simons, who would be particular to that particular religion. So would that make it an objective or subjective? Objective. Most people who are religious define their morality as objective because they're looking at sources outside of themselves, and they all seem to somewhat agree. Yeah.
If God created everything,
Yep.
if theoretically he did, then why would he create the opportunity for other religions and people to question religion?
That's a good question. You should ask God that.
Well, I'm not the Pope, so I can't talk to God.
But I'm not the Pope either. And your first step said if God created everything. I don't know.
Yeah, but isn't that what they say?
I don't know who they are.
Catholics.
But there's more than just Catholics who say that.
Okay, so how how is it that there can be like more than one religion and they like each have different ways about like how the earth and came to be and stuff, but our God says that His way is like actually what happened. So if multiple gods say that they're right, who's right?
I don't know the answer to that question. I can give you what many religions say. A lot of them may say like it's part of free will. You're allowed, just like in Canada, to put up. How many of you know who Britney Spears is? To go all the way back to my childhood. Excellent. Do you know about her conservatorship? Free Britney movement. So for many, some of you not, and some of you, for many years, she had sort of like this episode when she was young and she was very wealthy, and she did some things that were maybe a bit mentally unwell. And they decided you are so young and have so much money, just to make sure you don't hurt yourself, all of your financial decisions are going to be transferred to your dad. You are no longer legally an adult. You have a conservatorship. You have a guardian, regardless of your age. So essentially, her dad remained her guardian even after she turned 19. And then eventually there was a Free Britney movement, because conservatorship and doing that is usually reserved for really old people, like you have Alzheimer's or dementia and you can't make decisions, and like someone calls you up and says, I'm going to sell you an antivirus for your computer for $5,000, and you say yes and give them your credit card like you're easily fooled. We will give conservatorship to those people who are on a mental decline. But she was young and she had it for years, and they were spending all of her money. So eventually there was a Free Britney movement. She got more attention on it. It went to court. Conservatives are notoriously hard to break because they're usually reserved for people who are mentally in decline. It doesn't happen that often. And she broke it. And now she is her own person. She has control over her own finances. But the other day on TikTok, Instagram, she posted a video of herself dancing with knives. And then everybody was like, oh my God, she should be back in the conservatives. This is really unhealthy. And no, you're allowed to do stupid things. She was imitating, who was it, Shakira, who danced with knives on stage at one point? Nobody said she should be in a conservatorship. Britney's a trained dancer. You're allowed to make bad decisions. And similarly, someone in religion would probably say, you're free to be wrong. That's why there's other religions. At least that's what I was told when I was in Sunday school. So, I guess that would be the answer. But I would have to ask every single person who believes in a religion to find out all the
So is like believing in God, like believing in the imaginary dragon on your shoulder? Is it like the same level of realness?
No, the dragon's like actually real. Like I talked to the dragon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't be silly. Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. And just to be clear, because I don't want you to walk away, you should know the prejudices and biases of your teacher. I grew up Mennonite. I'm not necessarily saying I'm still Mennonite now. Things have happened. Yes?
The drow has a Bible.
Does what?
The drow has a Bible.
The dragon?
Yeah.
No. My dragon's not God. It's just a dragon.
So
Yeah, it's not a religion.
it's a cult.
It's not a cult.
Just a
I'm not trying to get you to believe in the dragon. I just told you about it.
Last class, yeah.
Yes, the other time.
Well, like, I was saying, prove me wrong, but, like, how many of you believe I have a dragon on my shoulder?
Can you
Excellent. Well done. I have converted some of you.
can you float around
At the end, please visit my Patreon. I'll take donations. Yes?
Isn't the Bible subjective though? Because
It's now
for
from one
example,
level.
someone could
Yeah.
believe that someone just wrote that up one
Right.
day because that's what they wanted to
Right.
happen.
So, here's where we get into the objective-subjective argument with religion. Let's pretend you are God. Okay? Goddess, whichever, I don't know which gender flavor you deity, to mean non-gendered. And I will say, I need to know what to do. Should I give a quiz, a surprise quiz at the end of class? Should I give a surprise quiz at the end of class? No. I just received word. I've asked my deity. The answer is no. Is my system objective?
Well,
For you.
it's not
For
based on
me.
your opinion.
Yeah. Did I get it from my opinion?
No.
No. Did I make it up in my head?
Well, but
Yeah.
you don't have to agree with me. You can hear me say no.
Yeah. But
Go ahead and do it.
if I did though, now it would be a sin because you're the deity. It would be wrong. However, is it subjective on the part of the deity?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are consulting a source that comes from a single person, you can argue that one step back it's subjective, because that goes back to the Euthyphro dilemma. If it's just being said, what is morally good is commanded by God because it is morally good, or is it morally good because it's commanded by the God? If you believe in the second one, then it is ultimately subjective. That's the problem, is that it goes back one step, and then whatever God says just happens to become good. And so that's why it is. But if someone is consulting the Bible and they're getting divine revelation, you cannot say they don't believe in an objective system. That is the objective system. They are consulting a source outside of themselves. You may not consider the source good, you may consider the source highly accurate, but regardless, it's still objective. Objective can still be right or wrong. And ultimately, where I'm going to leave that with, is it on the next page? Is that we're going to say, ultimately, you can just put this below it, there are independent standards that anyone can discover. This is accepted by most theologians. We're going to say that that's what we're going to assume, but it is an assumption. What? Give myself a little bit more room here. We're going to say, I'm going to add on to that. If this is true, then it cannot be arbitrary. The religious and non-religious can actually agree. Because if someone says killing is wrong because it says that in the Bible, and I said, yeah, but that's not good enough for me. They said, well, there's a source outside of the Bible. Killing is wrong because it deprives someone of their right to life or something like that. And they start talking in different terms about either utility or rights and duties. Then now you can argue about it externally. And that allows both religious and non-religious people to agree. Also, ultimately, divine command theory if we're going to become doctors or lawyers or anybody who's going to be imposing things on others, politicians, it is prohibited fundamentally by our charter rights to impose these things on other people. We are not a particular religious state. Archie and Kieran, what's going on? Questions? Concerns? Oh, hold up. What time is it? I've gotten so enamored with the conversation and listening to my own voice. We should probably go back to the podcast once this is done. Let me just finish off this page. Divine command theory. Anything commanded by God would be good. Even infanticide, which is probably the worst thing I can think of. That and kicking puppies. And that doesn't mean if you think, well, God wouldn't do that. If you're saying God wouldn't do that, you're acknowledging that there is a standard outside of God. It doesn't matter that God hasn't. There has to be the potential that at some point God could change your mind. Because if they can't change their mind, then what's forcing them to stop? Could they not create a world in which infanticide was good and just make a different type? Just like you can make a different Minecraft world and change the programming that's in there? And in the U.S., I would say it's prohibited by charter rights. What's the U.S. equivalent? What gives you your rights in the States? No, that's when they just said we're not part of the Canada anymore. We're a little sad about that. It's in the amendments. Which amendments? The amendments to the U.S. Constitution. You're used to hearing amendments because they made up their constitution and then they had to go back and change things like, oh, shoot, we forgot to make, this class of people actually people. Oh, wait, we should make slavery illegal for some people. Oh, wait, women are actually people. And they, added, oh, wait, we should make sure that you can ever have guns. Like, there's all sorts of things that those are. So when you hear amendments, it's amendments to the Constitution. Canada doesn't have amendments in the same kind of way. So that's a U.S. thing.
Can you redo an amendment?
Oh, yeah. It just takes everybody to agree. It's difficult because it takes everybody to agree. In the U.S., I believe you don't have to have 100% of the states agree. You have to have a certain amount. So, like, some states didn't ratify certain changes until, like, the early 2000s. Like, it would be a little news article, like, one state ratified the changes that, outlawed slavery, like, in 1996 or something. Because it just didn't pass their state constitution back then. They didn't require it to because they had enough other states do it. And then it just took them that long to get around to it. Yeah. Same with Canada. If you all get together, we have to have all the provinces agree. And there has to be a minimum number that do for us to make changes to our charter. It's actually more difficult to make changes to our charter. But our charter has an escape clause. So we don't have to make as many changes because our charter says you have all these rights and freedoms unless we really, really, really don't want you to have them. We don't use that escape clause very often. One of the differences in Canada versus the U.S. is that our governments have shown themselves really reluctant to use it, and everybody got really panicked because Doug Ford started to use it for what seemed to be fairly prosaic reasons. Like, we can just do this because of the escape clause. And everybody was like, that's a bad precedent. If we're going to do it at that easy level, we should probably get rid of it. But it's been done at other times. The notwithstanding clause, for example, is used in Quebec to outlaw English signs. So you should be able to put up a sign in both languages. That seems a fundamental right. Why should you be forced to use a particular language? To protect French culture in Quebec, they've made a law saying that your business cannot have English signs. And they use the escape clause, which is called the notwithstanding clause, which says that if it is in the best interest of all of Canada and the community to not obey the rights, then you can. And that has to go to court, and they have to fight over it, and they have. And everybody agreed that Quebec is a little special in that way, and they want to protect their culture, and they're like, fine, you can do that.
Doesn't that only apply for 5 years, though? You only let them not obey the laws for 5 years.
Yeah, but they keep doing it. You can keep renewing it. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure, though. I'd have to look up the date, but you've looked it up before?
Yeah.
Okay. You've got that down? If you would like anything I talk about, a great free resource, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy has a ton of resources, and it is one of the few resources I know that is maintained and written by professional philosophers that are employed at universities around the world, not just Stanford. So if you wanted to know more about religion and morality, you go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and you look it up. And they have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. It is more thorough and more detailed than many textbooks you could buy. Now, it is often written at a very high level, but it is really useful to read. Now, sit back.